Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg, and welcome back to Hanging with Mangg, episode 165. We're playing Final Fantasy V today. That's where I currently am in my Final Fantasy series. I'm actually over halfway through the game, which, if you're familiar with the game, you'll know that that's not what this is. I actually just lost all my save file this morning, because the Raspberry Pi thing, I lost my save file for Final Fantasy 3 as well, about halfway through the game, give or take. And I decided to just move on and go to 4. For this one, I lost it about halfway through the game, and I'm like, no, I can't give up on another one. So I'll just, use the speed function, and I'll get back to where I was. It shouldn't take too long, and it won't take too long, but it's a little annoying. I don't know what it is because I lost Final Fantasy 3, which was on the NES, so I lost that file. Just deleted it for some reason when I turned off the Raspberry Pi and turned it back on. And then this was on Game Boy Advance, did the same thing. And so when I turned it off and turned it back on, the save file was gone. And so I feel like it's not writing to the SD card or something like that. Like no save files are saving. But if I go to Super Nintendo, where I played Final Fantasy IV, my save file for the end of the game is there. So that's saved no matter what, turn off the console, whatever, it's still there. So I don't know what's going on. But I'm only going to be using... Actually, for Final Fantasy VI, I don't even know if I'll use it. After that, then I move on to other stuff. So yeah, I've been playing just shit ton amounts of Final Fantasy. Every single day, just powering through, recording all these videos. Right now, I uploaded 3 episodes of Final Fantasy 1 this week. So, in addition to that, I have 49 more videos to upload. Which is quite a bit, especially considering I didn't even finish Final Fantasy 3. Let's see. So that's another... It's another 4, probably 5. I'm going to split the last part. So we'll say 5 for Final Fantasy 1. Then 13 for Final Fantasy 2. 9 for Final Fantasy 3. 13 for Final Fantasy 4. And I'm up to 10 already on Final Fantasy V. 49 videos. Even if I uploaded one a day, which I won't. I wouldn't do that to you. Also, there are other things that get uploaded anyways. Even if I did upload one a day every day, that's almost 2 months worth of Final Fantasy just right there already sitting on my hard drive. That's nuts. With my normal uploading schedule, it's probably going to take like 4 months or 5 months just to get all this stuff uploaded that I've already recorded. And I have no inclination of stopping recording anytime soon. Like, I'm really enjoying this. For whatever reason. So... yeah, plenty of Final Fantasy on the way. Don't worry about that. So yeah, that's pretty much what I uploaded this week. Was 3 Final Fantasy episodes, the Zelda ranking video, Blades in the Dark, and Bloodborne. That was probably a surprise for some of you. Yeah, so, I hit the Patreon goal, $60. Finally, it took a while. Really, it was just like one guy that gave $18 a month to push it over the edge. Now, you can of course say whatever you could say. I'm gonna go on this Patreon for $500, and you know, until it's the beginning of the month and you're charged, that doesn't really mean anything. So I have no inclination of uploading the Bloodborne, Cthulhu Mythos and Bloodborne video during November. But I'm hoping for it to be like a Christmas present, around Christmas. That would be my goal. So anyways, yeah, you know, I started to just sort of spitball ideas and concepts in my head about how I would put this video together, things that are just buzzing around in there, up in the old dome. And I was like, well, you know, it would be probably helpful for me to have a whole video where I just talk about it out loud and go through the game. Which is kind of like when I first started talking about my D&D sessions, was during one series of Mangg Souls. And so I just started talking about D&D, spitballing ideas for like the campaign, the Artemis campaign, about what I could do and things like that, and that got out of hand. Anyways. Where was I? So yeah, we started that. It's obviously, you know, trying to be a fairly deep discussion, so it's not like a, it's not going to be a great playthrough for anybody that's never played through Bloodborne before, because I'm just talking about all sorts of endgame concepts and DLC concepts and, you know, plot points and stuff like that that really you might not even care or notice about your first playthrough. But I enjoyed making the video, and we'll continue that playthrough slowly but surely. Yeah, I guess that's about it. As for Exploring Series, we uploaded the Altmer video on Monday, which was not tremendously well received. I didn't think it would be. I've got the Bretons video tomorrow. Again, I don't think it'll be tremendously... Like, not... I mean, it was well received, but not like a tremendous amount of viewership. But as we get to these sort of, you know, the last races that were chosen for the polls, you know, they're not popular, so it is what it is. The Werewolves video actually just passed 100,000 views, which is very exciting. I did not expect that to get anywhere near that amount. I expected like 8,000 overall. So that's pretty good. We passed 90,000 subscribers. That's also good. In fact, I think we're closing in on 92,000. Yeah, we passed 91,000. Should hit 92,000 within the next few days. Pretty good, pretty good. Closing in on that 100K. That'll be a nice Christmas present. Yeah, I guess that's about it. I'm looking forward to getting past all the races, since we've been doing that for a while now. That's been up like, that's been a couple months of my channel has just been races and stuff. So it'll be good to get on to like the Daedric Princes and Tiber Septim. I'm looking forward to that video. Some of the more metaphysical concepts within the Elder Scrolls, things like that. But yeah, I'm probably, I guess, thanks to a suggestion by Satan that I probably agree with, even though I don't care for the extra work. I probably will alter my schedule a little bit and throw in some additional videos on Daedric Princes along the way. Really, mostly just because I don't want to drag out Elder Scrolls for another 5 months or 4 months or whatever. I'd really like to wrap it up within a couple months to move on to another series. Honestly, because I did not expect the Werewolves video to do so well and have so many people clamor for a mythology series. I didn't know, that many people wanted it. But that's something that I'm personally interested in covering, and if it would get views, a lot of views, that's pretty good too. I don't know if a mythology series will be chosen by the polls next time, but it's certainly possible. Really, the one thing that I'd rather not cover is the Dark Tower, to be honest. It just doesn't seem right to me. I mean, it's definitely one of my favorite series at this point. But it just, I don't know, I just want to put it on like a pedestal and be like, no, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to explain this. I don't want to spoil this. I don't want to delve into it. I just want people to fucking read it, and that's it. Make your own thoughts and conclusions. I don't want to be responsible for warping anybody's thoughts about Dark Tower or anything like that. I would love to make a series about the Stormlight Archives from Brandon Sanderson, because I'm just I got the his new book, the third one in the series, on release day. I've been reading that, and I think that could be a really big series, but I don't know if it's the right time for it. It's still a little young, and I would end up basically making a series. You could make a lore series at this point, but then, a few years down the line, 5-10 years down the line, you'd have to make another series. Correcting and filling in all these gaps. It's not like Tolkien or anything where it's all pretty much done. So, yeah, that might have to wait. Alright, so that's pretty much that. Before we get into board games and RPGs and all that, that take up the bulk of the video, I want to talk about Justice League. Because I did see Justice League this week, opening night. And yeah. There's probably going to be spoilers as I'm talking about this, but honestly, it doesn't matter. Spoilers for this movie do not matter, because the plot of this movie is about, I think it might be the most basic plot of a comic book movie ever made. At least in the last 20 years. This plot is just bare bones. Anybody could understand this plot. That's how simple it is. Basically, it's just bad guy shows up, wants to destroy the world, superheroes team up, superheroes beat bad guy. That's the plot. That's it. That's it. And there's bad guys or good guys struggle, so they bring in the big guns, the big superhero, Superman, and then they beat bad guy. That's it. That's the plot. That's the end of it. So don't worry about spoilers. Now, of course, like any movie on the planet, there are people that love it, people that hate it, and really, doesn't matter what I say, really, you should judge it for yourself. But I didn't particularly care for it. My problem with it, my problem with it mostly stems from The Flash. And this is really just a personal thing. Some people said The Flash was the best part of the whole movie for them. But for me, for my money, and this is a really startling, sad thing to... My friends were shocked when I uttered these words. I would have enjoyed the movie more if the Flash was not in it. Because for me, no Flash is better than bad Flash. If you're gonna fuck up a character, I'd rather he not be in the movie at all. That's where I'm at. Because, you know, the Flash is my favorite superhero. This is a well-known fact. I've done my work sort of evangelizing about the greatness of the Flash. So this is very clear. Everybody knew going in that pretty much my enjoyment of the film was based on the portrayal of the Flash. And I was already a little iffy because of who, you know, Ezra Miller I did not think was a great cast. He didn't look like a Barry Allen to me at all. But I was willing to give it the benefit of the doubt because Grant Gustin really did not seem like a Barry Allen to me when he was cast for the show. But, you know, I really like the show. And he does a fine job, I think. So I was willing to give Ezra Miller a chance, but I mean, maybe he's a fine actor. It's hard to say. I've never seen him in anything else, but for this, he blew it. Somebody blew it. I'm going to blame the writers more than Ezra, but... So, The Flash, Barry Allen in the film... well, as I walked out of the theater, I believe I uttered the words, they made him a fucking autistic guy. Which maybe is a little extreme, but that was me walking out of the theater. But, in the movie, he's living as, like, a squatter. Like, he's living, like, I guess illegally near, like, an abandoned train station. And he's got, like, this little, like, hidey hole den that's filled with, like, computers and monitors showing Korean pop music videos and stuff. And he doesn't like people, as he explains to Ben Affleck. He's like, you know, people are a little slow for me, and he's like stuttering and stuff, and he's just like not even like looking him in the eyes, and he's just like really awkward. And then throughout the rest of the movie, he spends his time being the comic relief, if you want to call it that. Practically every line out of his mouth throughout the entire running time of the film is meant to be a joke. I'm not sure if he says a single serious line throughout the film. Now, if they would have called this character Wally West, if they would have said, alright, this is Wally West, he's the Flash, I would have had less problem with this, because Wally West is a bit more of a quippy kind of asshole that just is less serious than Barry Allen. Barry Allen has a sense of humor, sure, all the Flashes do, but, you know, he can be a serious guy, and his humor is a little different. But no, they had to go with Barry Allen. Mert was trying to explain to me that, I don't know, some of I don't even, he mentioned a guy's name, I don't even know who it is. Somebody running the show over there just loves Barry Allen. And so he had to put Barry Allen in there instead of Wally West. And a lot of people are big Wally West fans. You know, if you're a fan of Wally West and not Barry Allen, you're kind of getting the shaft nowadays. Because the show is all about Barry Allen. They brought in Wally West, but now they kicked him off again because nobody likes him. And the movie goes with Barry Allen and not Wally West. And so, yeah, no one really cares. Not since Barry Allen came back. Anyways. Not only is he just not constantly making jokes, for one, the jokes were not funny. I thought they were just way over the top, not humorous at all. Just sort of cringy and like, what are you doing? Why is this Barry Allen? What is going on? In addition to that, he's also fucking useless. Useless. In a bad way. He is completely useless. There are multiple moments in the film where he trips over his own feet while he's running. He trips over his own feet. And he's really, like, he says, like, you know, I've never fought anybody. I just sort of run real fast and push people and stuff like that. And, you know, what they're going for. I get what they're going for. Honestly, I do. I get what they're going for. They're going for a real rookie Flash. Like, he just recently got his powers, and he's sort of, you know, scared of him. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's teaming up with all these sort of older people that are very comfortable with their power. You know, Batman's been doing his thing for 20 years. You got Wonder Woman that's been around for just decades, and she's just a badass and hotter than a fucking volcano, but that's a different point. You got Aquaman, who is, you know, supposed to be like the bad boy of the group, I guess. And so he sort of, you know, starts to bond with Cyborg, or tries to, because they're both younger. But he's useless. He doesn't do anything. Honestly, there's not a single thing he does in the film that, if he was gone, would change nothing. Nothing would change. He's useless. I think his biggest contribution throughout the whole film is he, like, helps carry at super speed Cyborg over to where he needs to, like, defuse the MacGuffin. That's, like, his biggest contribution. But, you know, Cyborg has plenty of time. He would have gotten there anyways. It's not a big deal. Especially because Cyborg has a fucking jetpack. He's not, like, super slow or anything. It's ridiculous. And, you know, it's okay showing characters when they're just beginning, they're just coming to grips with their power and they're struggling and blah, blah, blah. That's fine, but it's just not what I want to see. So again, this is just kind of a personal thing. I don't ever want to see the Flash tripping over his own 2 feet. That's just what it is. I just don't ever want to see it. Maybe some people do, and they might enjoy it. But for me, it's just, I don't want to see a useless Flash. Especially because, you know, as a Flash fan, or as, you know, if you're a fan of any number of characters that are not really widely, like, respected. Like, if you're a fan of Batman, if that's your favorite superhero, you don't understand. You don't get it. Everybody likes Batman. Batman is hugely popular. You can go to anywhere, any place in the world and be like, oh yeah, Batman. Batman's awesome. There's going to be someone there that's like, yeah, Batman's awesome. But now imagine if your favorite superhero is Aquaman. Aquaman, you've gone decades and decades with people shitting all over Aquaman. And keep in mind, the majority of people that are into comic books, or the majority of people that are into superheroes don't read comic books. So, you know, I've had to deal with plenty of people that shit all over Flash and have never read a single Flash comic book. I argued with a guy. I remember it. I'll remember it till the day I die, just because this guy was so... This guy was like... He was like a fucking amoeba. That's how devolved this guy was. He was arguing with me that Aquaman was a better superhero than the Flash. Now, I like Aquaman. I actually think Aquaman's pretty cool. But compared to the Flash, get the fuck out of here, man. Anyways. Oh yeah, that's what I was talking about. So, yeah, you know, among me and my group of friends, I've done enough to explain how awesome the Flash is and how completely overpowered he is. But in the wider world out there, the Flash does not get a lot of respect. Now, the show has definitely helped in that regard. And I'm very glad the show exists. But, yeah, a lot of people out there, if you talk about the Flash, they're just like, oh, yeah, he runs real fast, right? And it's like, you sweet summer child, you have no idea. And so then they come out with this movie, The Justice League. And so, you know, I saw the Wonder Woman movie. It made her look pretty badass. She never got like a scratch on her. She's just doing all these cool badass female things, and she's beating up everybody. And at the start of the Justice League, she gets her own scene stopping like this robbery. No, it's not even a robbery. They're just like terrorists. She stops like these terrorists, and it's completely badass. She's doing all this badass shit. She like blocks full machine gun fire as she like slides across the ground. It's really cool. And I'm like, oh man, I can't wait for the Flash to do something awesome. And that never happens. Not once, really, does he ever do anything that badass at all. Continuing on. Not only does he just seem useless by himself, but when Superman makes an appearance, and yeah, I don't think that's a spoiler. Superman's in the movie. Like, I'm pretty sure he's in promotional images standing with all the others. But when Superman makes an appearance, it's just a joke. Like, if you're a person that dislikes Superman as a character, like, you think that he's just so overpowered and it's just a joke, you know, he's just so much more powerful than everybody else, you will fucking hate this movie, because this movie just proves all of your points. Because he does make every single other member of the Justice League look completely worthless. During the big climactic finish of the film, okay, they're fighting the big villain, Steppenwolf, as he sings Born to be Wild or whatever. And, like, you know, he's doing all these crazy, he's like transforming the world into this apocalypse or something like that. And there's all these civilians around, okay? Like, it's in Russia, but it's in sort of a populated area, somewhat of Russia. There's civilians. And so, you know, they go to Barry and they're like, all right, Barry, we're going to fight the villain and, you know, disarm this nuclear apocalypse device or whatever. You're fucking worthless, all right? Clearly, you've spent this entire film being absolutely worthless. So why don't you just get out of here and just go rescue some civilians, all right? You can do that, right, Barry? And he's like, all right, sure, I can do that. So he runs off to try and rescue all the civilians. Now, again, if you're if you're a fan of comic book Flash, particularly Wally West, you know that the Flash can do some pretty insane feats when he needs to. Moving, you know, trillions and trillions times the speed of light, rescuing, you know, 500,000 people within, like, you know, 0.001 seconds or something like that. You know, just absolutely insane shit. Like tuning every radio on the planet in under a second's worth of time. Just, there's absolutely insane stuff. And so I'm like, all right, you know, Barry, it's going to be a real quick scene where Barry just zooms off, and then like a second later he shows back up and he's like, all right, they're all over in New York City now, or some, you know, just something insane like that. But then I remember, oh wait, he's fucking worthless in this film. So he runs off, and first he runs in the wrong direction. He just runs off into the middle of nowhere, and he's like, oh wait, this isn't east. So he has to turn back and run back. And by that point, Superman has arrived, and he's already, like, beating the shit out of the villain. And they're like, oh, Barry went to go, you know, rescue the civilians, but I don't think he'll be able to do it. Or something like that. So Superman's like, I'll help him out. And so Superman catches up to the Flash in, like, an instant. And is like, I'm here to help, blah, blah, blah. And so Barry manages to rescue 4 civilians by pushing their truck just out of the way. Meanwhile, they show Superman carrying an entire building worth of people and just, you know, flying past Barry. And this is meant to be, you know, a joke. It's meant to be a comedic scene. But it's a comedic scene at the expense of the Flash, which is really most of the comedic scenes. It just shits all over the Flash. It just shows the Flash is utterly worthless, and this just pisses me off. Now, the Flash is not the only one that gets screwed by the presence of Superman, because Superman makes everybody else look completely worthless. And literally, I'm going to spoil this for you. They spend, they do this, like, lengthy fight against the villain of the film. The remaining, like, mainly it's Wonder Woman, Batman, and Aquaman trying to fight off this villain, and they're just failing. Like, they can't do anything to this guy. He's dominating them. Superman shows up, pretty much throws 3 punches, and just annihilates him. Like, he's just completely done. And meanwhile, Superman just has this, cocky, smug grin on his face. And he's just like, well, blah, 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 I'm Superman. And, and the others are just like, oh, well, I guess we weren't fucking needed at all. So, Superman rescues all the civilians, except for 4. He defeats the villain pretty much single-handedly. And then they go over to the apocalyptic device that, this guy's using to change the world and destroy it or whatever. And Cyborg is doing, like, all his cyborg stuff to try and, like, disrupt it and turn it off or something like that. And then he's like, oh, Superman, thank goodness you're here. And he's like, you need to separate the 3, cores of the device. And that's the only way we can disarm it. And so, sure enough, Superman's just like, "Urgh!" And he separates all 3 and it's disarmed. And it's like, what the fuck was their plan if Superman didn't show up? Because Superman, they did not know that Superman was going to arrive to save the day. They did not know that going in. They probably were hoping, but they did not know that. And so, without Superman, they would have rescued 4 civilians. The villain would have killed them all. And the device would have probably gone off, blowing up the entire planet or whatever, and changing it into an apocalyptic wasteland. Superman was the Justice League. He is the Justice. That's it. That was just the end of it. It's just the Flash got the shortest end of the deal because he was just completely worthless throughout the whole film. So like I said, if the Flash was not in the movie, I probably would have I wouldn't have been thinking about that the whole time. I would have just tried to enjoy it and be whatever. Okay, Superman's awesome, and yeah, all right. It was kind of, just comic book fun and whatever. I would have been thinking the whole time. I would have been complaining afterwards and would have been like, "Oh man, it was not bad, but I wish the Flash was in it. I really wish. Why did they leave the Flash out?" I would have said that, but overall, I would have been happier. But the way that they did it, they just fucked it up. They just fucked it up. I had friends that liked it and friends that didn't like it. It seemed a little bit more divisive than something like Thor Ragnarok. A lot of people are just describing it as just leave your brain behind comic book fun, but that's what I thought of. That's what I thought of Thor Ragnarok. That was leave your brain behind, just pure comic book fun. Whereas this was just, my brain hurts and I don't like this, what I'm watching. It was too short. If you're introducing, for the first time, half of the characters in your superhero team-up movie, that's a mistake. You're making mistakes. Alright? Because they had to spend time, introducing who the hell Cyborg is and what's going on with him, who the Flash is, what's going on with him, who Aquaman is and what's going on with him. And, apparently, according to some people, Warner Brothers demanded that the movie be under 2 hours. And so they just didn't have enough time to do any of this, but they still tried, and it's just nothing succeeds there. And it's just problems all over the place. Aquaman, I was very curious about Aquaman going in because, like I said, I do like Aquaman. I think he can be a pretty cool character, and just he's very misunderstood among the general public because they're associated with, like, the cartoons and stuff where he just talks to fish, and he's wearing this orange weird outfit, and even then they don't know anything. That was kind of the joke, is that he just talks to fish and that's all he does. But he definitely has, like, superhero strength and agility, because he lives at the bottom of the fucking ocean. What do you expect? And, you know, his power level throughout the years has varied between, you know, what he can really do. He can summon, like, tsunamis and stuff, and he can command all the fish in the sea to converge, and, you know, all this kind of stuff. So I was curious what they were going to do with Aquaman, you know, to make him a really interesting character, deserving of his own film. I don't know if they quite succeeded on that. I think Jason Momoa did a great job with what he was given. Really, they were going for him as sort of the bad boy of the group, like drinking whiskey and just slamming the bottle down and just not giving a shit and all this kind of stuff. I would see the Aquaman movie, sure, but I think they probably could have done a better job. Cyborg is a character I know very little about. Like, I don't know almost anything about Cyborg, and I actually liked it. He was probably my favorite character in the film, surprisingly. And so I would definitely like to see a standalone Cyborg film. But again, I think if you're a super fan of Aquaman, the movie probably pissed you off a little bit. If you're a super fan of Cyborg, the movie probably pissed you off a little bit. So on and so forth. You know, Ziggy's wife is a super fan of Wonder Woman, and she said, I guess, that the characterization was just off in this movie. I think I read something like that online, that she, like, in every scene she's in, she's just like smirking and just, you know, giving this like feminine smile to everybody, and that's just not Wonder Woman. I don't know. It, I guess I've talked about this for a while now. I have other things to talk about. I mean, I can't say I recommend it, just because I did not really enjoy it, but I think that was just a personal thing. I think if you don't like comic book movies, this is not going to do a single damn thing to change your mind. I think overall, a lot of people agree that the movie certainly could have been better, considering this is a Justice League movie with all these super, just, you know, some of the most important comic book characters to ever exist. I think that they could have done a better job. We could have had something better than what we got. Yeah, so kind of disappointing. But it is what it is. Moving on. Board games. Yesterday we played a single game of Cosmic Encounter. 6 players. Double aliens. It went on for about like 2.5 hours. It's a pretty lengthy game of Cosmic. And I had a fun combo. I liked the combo I had. I had Love and Relic. So my entire concept for the whole game was about other players discarding all their cards. That was my whole concept, because with the Relic, anytime anybody was out of cards and had to draw a new hand, I got a free foreign colony in their home system. Which, anytime you get a free foreign colony, for any reason, that's huge. So that happened, I want to say that happened twice throughout the game. I think that happened twice. Well, I mean, I did not win. It happened twice, so I got 2 free colonies from that. And then Love was, whenever it was my turn, I could discard a card from my hand, and everybody else had to discard a card of the same type from their hand. And anybody that could not, I got a free, I could place a free colony in their system. Like, only once per turn. So if nobody showed the card, I didn't get a free colony everywhere. It was just one. But, you know, you just pick, like, the rare, like, you pick Flare. There's a good chance among 6 people that at least one person is not going to have a Flare. But if you dive into, like, the rewards deck and you're drawing the really rare types, like Rifts and Kickers and things like that, you're guaranteed to get a free colony. So I got a free colony from that. So that's 3 free colonies throughout the game. I ended up getting my 4th by being an ally for somebody. So I had 4 colonies, and there was a point in the game where every single player had 4 colonies. It was a 6-way tie, and so it was very tense the last few turns as everyone was vying for their last colony. And so I was 1 turn away. I was 1 turn away from, as I found out, getting a guaranteed win, because nobody had a Cosmic Zap, and 1 player did not have a Flare in their hand. I would have guaranteed a win, but right before it was my turn, Thomas ended up sneaking out a win somehow, which means he's won 3 games in a row now of Cosmic Encounter. It's just incredible. I don't know how it happens. But people say, you know, people that don't like it is like, it's just a game of luck. You never know what's gonna happen. It's all just luck. You know. You can't control your win. There's no skill, and it's like, well, I mean, I guess, you know, it could be luck to win 3 games in a row, but I don't know. You're starting to stretch it. It was a very fun game. We had a lot of fun with it. And we found out that the game actually ended because Thomas went up against Phil, and Thomas won. Because none of us had anything that could change the outcome of the fight. He just needed a few more points to win the encounter. And we found out right afterwards that Phil never revealed his second alien. He was face down the whole game. And so we look at it, we read it, and we find out it was pretty much the exact alien he needed to win the encounter and keep the game going. Which, you know, of course, the only thing that would have happened is it would have gotten to my turn and I would have instantly won. So pretty much him not revealing it decided that Thomas would win instead of me. So, of course, I was upset, but it didn't really matter, I guess. But we were still angry at him because it's a really stupid thing to forget about. Anyways, alright. Blades in the Dark. So we started, we did character creation, and we had our first little session on Monday. So I'm a little iffy on DMing Blades in the Dark. I think I certainly think it's a decent system. There's a lot of interesting concepts going on in there. You know, I have my own problems with the fact that it's really kind of gamified, and I think there's just too many little rules to determine stuff that probably shouldn't be determined by rules. And at other times, it's really vague as to what, you know, something should be, but that's meant to be, that was done on purpose to leave it open for interpretation. I don't know. It's kind of a strange system. It's very unique. I wouldn't really recommend it for anybody's first DMing. It requires an immense amount of improvisation because you have no idea what job the players are going to do. You know, when y'all sit down at the table, they could do anything they wanted. They could make up their own jobs. They can run off the sort of claims chart to sort of take new claims for their territory. You can supply a job, but you have no idea if they'll really take it or how they'll approach it or whatever. You know, they could approach a job from a number of different angles, and it's just, there's really no prep work for that. And I guess the players are meant to sort of assist you in this sort of improvisation work during the session. You know, they're meant to supply ideas for devil's bargains and just consequences and what they should roll and things like that. They're meant to supply all that or help you supply that, but depending on your group, that could never happen. They might never say anything about it and you're just stuck. So I think it's definitely tricky to run. And also, I feel kind of bad because the setting is very interesting. It's a very unique setting as far as, like, demon blood and ghosts, and it's always like kind of nighttime. You know, it's like constant like twilight, so there's just constant darkness, and there's electricity, but it's sort of basic, and the city is just very grimy and dirty and dark and mysterious, and I just don't feel like I'm a good DM for describing the setting. You know, I rarely ever use like adjectives, and really I just sort of focus on like the mechanics. You know, I focus on like what's immediately around them that matters to them, and you know what the job is, and the building layouts and stuff like that, but I never really care about like adjectives and describing the scene or anything like that, and so I feel kind of bad. I feel like I'm wasting the setting because I don't describe it at all, but that's just because when I'm a player, I don't really care about the description of the scene. I mean, I care what's like objects within the scene, the layout of the scene, things like that, but I don't care about you describing the dirty ground and the smoke-filled atmosphere, or, you know, whatever. Just sort of all these adjectives and descriptions. I don't really care about that, the flowery language. I just care about what I'm doing, you know, mechanically, the problem solving, all that kind of stuff. So I guess that kind of comes over to my DMing approach as well. So I don't know. I guess that's sort of a minor quabble. But anyways, so we went through character creation, which took a while. And they're running a crew of smugglers. So they're focused on smuggling things into and out of the city, or into and out of buildings across the city, so on and so forth. They could be smuggling people, they could be smuggling goods, they could be smuggling artifacts. Who knows what? Just all around smuggling. They decided they liked this. And the characters they made, I believe they have a lurk, who is sort of just the traditional stealth thief. They have a hound, who's sort of like a tracker and sniper, mainly focused on gun use. And then they have a spider, who is sort of the mastermind of the group, comes up with all the plans. Not exactly focused on talking. I think Ziggy probably really wanted a slide, but he went with a spider. The slide is really like the face of the group, the talker, whereas the spider maybe can talk, but you can have a slide and a spider in the same group, and they never overlap, because the spider is sort of the one running everything, assisting everybody, making sure everything goes smoothly, whereas the slide is just the talker. And so they decided that the theme for their crew, what they're kind of focused on, what they're best at, is sort of the weird stuff. They wanted to focus on sort of the really strange, ghost, magical, demonic artifacts and things like that in the universe, in the setting. Which was fine with me, because that is some of the more interesting stuff. I thought maybe it was a bit of an off choice for the first time you ever play the game. It's kind of like playing Shadowrun and having all your characters be like magic focused, and you really want to focus on the magic of Shadowrun. It's a valid choice, you certainly can do it, but I feel like that sort of stuff should start out in the background, as you start off a little vanilla, and then it slowly seeps in and becomes more and more a bigger part of the setting. But that's just me. So the start of the session then is, I mean, it's up to you as a DM how you kind of want to do the first session. I think most of the time they say that you should introduce them, you should put them into a situation and give them the first job. And so that's what I did. I took it straight out of the book, the recommended starting scenario. with this sort of turf war between some other bigger gangs, and they're in this guy's office who's the head of one of the gangs, asking if he's on their side. So they sided with this guy with the Lamp Blacks, I believe, who's going up against, he's on a turf war with the Red Sashes. And so he hired them based on their reputation for smuggling weird stuff. He hired them to smuggle in this artifact into the Red Sashes headquarters, which really isn't smuggling per se. I mean, it kind of is, I guess. They are smuggling an item into a location that they should not be. It does not belong. I guess that's what smuggling is. And so that's pretty much it. He gives them a box. He says there's a magical artifact inside it. Don't open the box until, you know, you're in the Red Sash's headquarters. He doesn't really tell them what's inside the box or what it does. And that's pretty much it. That's all the details he gives them. And away they go. And so at first they kind of toyed with the idea of siding with the Red Sashes instead, and they agreed that they probably didn't want to gain a reputation for being like backstabbers like that, which is fucking smart, because why would the Red Sashes trust them? They went to one of their contacts to try and see if they could figure out what's going on with this artifact. You know, if they could figure out what it is and how it's used or anything like that. I think maybe they wanted to use the artifact for themselves, but it's like, again, like, you really need to, if you want to focus on smuggling you know, you want to get smuggling jobs, you got to earn your rep. You got to earn your rep for doing what you're told and not asking too many questions or poking around. And so in the end, they decided to just do the job as described. And so the interesting thing about Blades in the Dark is, well, for one, you know, when you're given a job and you say, okay, we're going to do the job, you say how you are going to approach the job, whether you're going to approach it from a stealth perspective, just an all-out assault perspective, a social perspective. There's a number of different ways that you can approach any given job. So if you're just going to all sneak in to this building using stealth, using this hidden entrance or something like that, you would say, okay, you're using the stealth approach, and the only detail you have to provide when you say this is your point of entry, your point of infiltration. So you'd say this hidden entrance we found out about. Whereas if you want to do the social approach, you're approaching the job from a social aspect. All you have to provide is the social connection that you're sort of exploiting or using. Whether, you know, you're masquerading as diplomats or something like that. Or there's a ball that they're planning. You might use okay, we're attending the ball as masked guests, and that's how we're getting in. That's all you have to provide is the detail. That's it. Just one sentence of detail. That's it. And they really went off the rails here, and I really had to hone them in. Which, again, sort of my personal feelings, because that was sort of my problem with Blades in the Dark as a player, is I love to plan. That's really, I just enjoy planning for every aspect of a job. And the book even says, like, this may bother some of your players, that you're skipping over the best parts of like, preparation and planning for all these things. Just go with it. Just roll with it. Just see how it goes. Just going straight into the job. And so once they pick their approach and they're provided detail of the approach, you roll the die. You roll the dice to determine basically how well the job starts. You know, whether everything starts really fucked up. The target heard about, you know, their approach and they planned defenses, or they covered up some of, you know, whatever, or it's an ambush, or if it's more fortuitous, they rolled really well and it's like, yeah, there's like a skeleton crew there tonight. They're off drinking, or they're all drunk, or you know, this thing is left unguarded for whatever reason, so on and so forth. You know, this dice determines how well the job starts. Now, anything could happen after that, but there's just a dice roll, and this dice roll is modified by how well their approach is, how convoluted, you know, their plan is. If it's dependent on a lot of factors, like, you know, there's like a big luck element that can really hurt your approach, because just, you know, things can go wrong. They will go wrong. If you're attacking like a really high level target, like a really fortified location, you know, you're a shit gang going up against like the military or something, you're gonna have a tough time. And you may get really lucky and have a good start, but chances are it's gonna be worse. Whereas if you're a really like super gang going up against some shit thing, and you have everything sort of planned out, this perfect, you know, plan or whatever, things probably will go good, but there is a chance that, you know, factors outside of your control just fuck everything up. That can happen. So it's an interesting idea, because the idea is to just cut away with all the prep work, all the planning and all that, and just go straight into the job, into the action. And the way they handle making up for all the lack of prep work is through flashbacks. So at any time during the job, while they're on the job, any player character can just say, okay, wait, I'm doing a flashback. And they can zoom back in time to any point, reasonably, before the job, and say, I planned for this, or whatever, and say, I did this in preparation of this occurring, of this event happening, of this contingency. And then me as the DM says whether or not it's reasonable, it's possible, and then provides them a stress cost for what they just said. And stress is sort of this, it's kind of like health, but not really. Stress can be used for flashbacks, for avoiding consequences, for pushing yourself to get more dice for rolls, things like that. It's sort of a currency that you're spending when you're on a job in order to make it succeed. And you sort of have to, you know, budget out your stress during a job, because you don't want to use it all up. So something really simple that would be really easily possible for them to plan for and accomplish for a flashback might cause 0 stress. Whereas something really complicated and really out there might cost 2 stress, 3 stress, 4 stress, whatever. And so they have to sort of decide, you know, how much stress do I really want to put into this? What's really beneficial that I planned for? And so during the session, at one point they said a flashback and said, oh yeah, before the job, I drank a little, so I smell like alcohol. And I'm like, okay, that's something easily accomplished, and so that's 0 stress. Whereas at one point, Phil decided to do a flashback saying that last night he ambushed a red sash guy to get his uniform. And I'm like, okay, that's a bit more complicated. And so some flashbacks might just happen. Some flashbacks might require a roll or more than one roll, depending on what they're doing. And so I had him roll for that, and then I determined a stress cost for it, and so on and so forth. And so it's a little murky, because you can't do a flashback that changes anything. Like, you can't time travel with a flashback. And you can do flashbacks. I mean, obviously, the character, or the players, don't know exactly what's going to happen throughout the job. They just can't know everything. So things are going to happen that they couldn't have planned for, and yet they might try to do a flashback to say, oh yeah, I knew this was going to happen. That's up to just DM discretion. Also, I was reading, and somebody brought up a good point of, like, you know, you're doing rolls for these flashbacks because they might be doing, like, you know, convoluted things in a flashback as part of their preparations, and they might fuck that up, and they might get an injury or something. And it's like, okay, so in the flashback, they got a sprained ankle. And it's like, would they have really gone on this job or done exactly what they did if they had a sprained ankle? And it's like, and that's just kind of sort of the way that things go. And it's part of why I don't really love it as a player. I just prefer to prep everything and plan out everything, because I just like that. But I think they enjoyed the flashback concept, and we'll see how it goes in the future. I'm over an hour already, so that's a lot of talking. But basically, the thing was they had to smuggle the artifact into the thing. They planned it, they debated about this for a while, and I'm just like, just fucking pick an approach and do it. And so finally they're like, because they squabbled about trying to, like, talk their way in. They really wanted to talk their way in, because that's all Ziggy, I guess, cared about doing. And they just could not think of a reasonable way that this would really work. It just did not make sense to me either. So eventually they found out about a hidden path, because you can gather information before you do a job. That's perfectly fine. It's meant to be real snappy. Either it's just you can find about it easily and it's no dice roll, or you might do a dice roll and find out, or, you know, that's it. So they found out about a hidden passage underneath in the canals that leads up into the headquarters. And so, like, all right, we're going to sneak in and we're going to do it that way. And pretty much it came down to just one character sneaking in, where the others are just, like, keeping watch. So it really was like a one-man job, which was interesting. Later on, during the job, Phil decided to go in. And so, of course, they kind of bungled it. He got captured by guards, but he did manage to, like, throw the box underneath a bed while it was open. So he did fulfill that part of the job. But he did take a massive gauntleted sucker punch to the gut, which, like, bruised some of his internal organs. It really hurt him. And then, you know, Phil comes in with, like, his uniform, and he pretended to be, like, looking for this beggar, because Thomas was dressed as a beggar. And so he's like, I've been looking for this one. And then he walks up and just smashes his fist across his face. He doesn't pull his punch or anything like that. So Thomas, like, took even more stress damage from that. He was like completely out of it. But he does convince the guards to let him go and have him escort him out. And they get almost all the way out before they get caught by some other guards, and they just sprint out of there. And they do end up making it out of there, but it's not a perfectly clean job. But they do succeed. They get paid. They get some rep for actually completing a job as described. And that's pretty much where we ended. We didn't get to play for very long. Yeah, I mean, the problem was they really did not think properly about this job. They did not use a single piece of gear, even though they have just a laundry list of equipment and items available to them. Some really useful stuff, but they just completely ignored it for whatever reason. I never reminded them. So they didn't use a single piece of gear on the job. It was sort of just a learning session, 100%. So I'm very interested to see how it continues. I think they're very interested. I do not expect Blades in the Dark to last long for me, as far as DMing. I've been DMing for a while now. For a little while, I guess. It hasn't been that long, but I can't DM for long bursts. So I expect about 5 sessions or so out of Blades in the Dark before I pass the torch. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Alright, I guess that's it. We're over an hour. So check out the Breton video tomorrow. We got some more Final Fantasy coming this way. I'm sure there's going to be another Bloodborne video this week. Blades in the Dark, and that might be it. I decided not to get Battlefront just because, one, I hear the single player isn't that incredible, and it's $60, and there's that whole big boycott, outrage thing, and it's like, well, I'm not on EA's side with it, so I might as well boycott it, I guess. Yeah. It's not like Shadow of War where it's like, well, I'm getting it, so whatever. I guess the boycott can swing me in the other direction. But anyways, that's about it. So, my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. I'll see you fine folks next week.